Hello, you're welcome back to my channel. Um, Thank you for joining me today. So, we're going to be continuing with our JavaScript series, and we're going to be looking at an interesting challenge today. It says use recursion to create a countdown. Okay, so we've done something on recursion previously, and this is something more interesting than the previous challenge we had to do with recursion. So let's go into it without wasting time. It says here in the previous challenge, you learned how to use recursion to replace a for loop. Now how let's look at the more complex function that returns an array of consecutive integers starting with 1 through the number passed to the function. As mentioned in the previous challenge, there will be a base case. The base case tells the recursive function when it no longer needs to call itself. It is a simple case where the return value is already known. There will also be a recursive call which executes the original function with different arguments. If the function is written correctly, eventually the base case will be reached. For example, say you want to write a recursive function that returns an array containing the numbers 1 through n. This function will need to accept an argument n representing the final number. Then it will need to call itself with progressively smaller values of n until it reaches 1. You could write the function as follows. So this is an example of a recursive function, alright, that returns an array 1 through n. So this is what it looks like. So this is the base case. Of course, it mentions here that the base case should be like something you already know, right? A simple case where the return value is already known. So at some point we are going to get to 1 and then below 1. So if n at any time reaches to get to something below 1, we want it to stop, right? We don't want it to call itself again. So but if it's anything greater than 1, then it should run the following code here. So basically uh this is where it calls itself again, and then it pushes in n and returns count array. So when you console.log this whole function, um it's going to return 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, an array of 1 2 3 4 and 5. At first this seems counterintuitive since the value of n decreases, but the values in the final array are increasing. This happens because the push happens last after the recursive call has returned. At the point where n is pushed into the array, count of n minus 1 has already been evaluated and returns 1 to n minus 1. Okay, and here, so here goes our challenge. We have defined a function called countdown with one parameter n. The function should use recursion to return an array containing the integers n through 1 based on the n parameter. If the function is called with a number less than 1, the function should return an empty array. For example, calling this function with n equals 5 should return the array 5 4 3 2 1. Your function must use recursion by calling itself and must not use loops of any kind. So basically, you can replace loops with recursion. Well, I want us to first of all look at this example that we were given because we're doing exactly the opposite of it. So I believe there is just something we could change here that'll give us the results. Well, let's look at this pound up function. So I'll just copy it from here and paste into my um, function here. And let's also change this to down. So as you can see, it gives us, oh, count down here too. Let me change this. It gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just as it told us it would. So what's going on here? So I'll try to explain this as much as possible. So this is n is 5, all right? So going, let's just get into the code line by line. If n is less than 1, it will return this empty um, array. If not, it's going to run this. So what's going to happen here? Let me open a comment. So it's going to here call countdown with a smaller value, all right? So then it's going to call countdown with 4 because n is 5 at first. So we're going to have a progression that looks like this. Countdown, um, starting from 5, all right? Countdown 5, countdown 4, countdown 3, countdown 2, and countdown 1. So, it's gonna, once it gets here, it will call itself again, and get here again, call itself here, get here, call itself. And it's gonna keep doing that until it gets to 1. Once it gets to 1, of course, it's also gonna call itself again, and then it will get to this else part because it doesn't meet this condition. But after it gets here, it calls itself again with 0, and then it gets back to the top, and then this first condition is met because n is now less than 1. So that is where the whole function ends. It returns this empty array. So um for every function call, there's one there's one line of code that is executed here, and that is what adds the numbers into the array. So once it gets to the bottom here, it starts executing the code one after the other. You start executing the function calls one after the other. So from countdown 1, it's gonna push in 1. From countdown 2, it pushes into 3, 4, 5, and then it returns. It stops there. It returns the empty array. I hope this makes sense. If you don't quite understand it, but you could drop a comment. Recursion can be tricky. So that is basically how it works. So in the end, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So, but now we are asked to do something different. We want to have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And for that, we just need to change one thing, and that is push. If you've been with us from the beginning, or if you are a JavaScript developer, you know that the push function, the array push function pushes an element to the end of the array. So what we're going to do is change this push to a function that pushes the element to the beginning of the array. So instead of having it do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's gonna do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So a shift is what is our game changer. So it's basically pushes every item starting with 1, pushes 2 to the back or to the front of the array, 3, 4, and then 5. And that is simply how this can be done. Okay. So let's go ahead and run the tests, and it works. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment if you've been gaining something from this. Bye.